Is when I went to help in Hurricane Katrina, and there were about 11,000 people at the Reliance Center in Houston. I was at a staging center. The significant moment for me was helping a family whose matriarch was a retired nurse. She was a retired nurse. She had worked for about 45 years. She'd been retired 5 or 6 years, and she was having a hard time finding placement. And she had several grandchildren with her. She had lost contact with some of her family members, and she was one of the people, one of the few people that really was in an economic at an economic level that she could have afforded to get out earlier, but she stayed to help her extended family. And I was able to, it was kind of at the right place at the right time, and had spoken to some people just that day, and there were some openings for people to get transportation. It was a transportation issue more than anything. And I just persevered, and I really didn't know what I was doing, because it was really not a nursing function. It was just a person-to-person type thing. And I felt really good, and I felt like I had done something for not only someone who had suffered a lot, but someone who had served humanity for 40+ years. So that was a really great moment.
I would have to say that my most compassionate moment was one day I was walking through Costco here in town, and I had a patient who had shouted out to me as I was exiting the store, "Nurse, nurse!" And I stopped in my tracks, and I turned and looked, and she was holding a baby. And I got a little nervous at first, and then I had approached her and I said, you know, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "Oh yes, do you remember me? Do you remember me from when I had my baby?" And I said, "Well, how old is he?" And she said, "Oh, he's 6 months." She goes, "I remember you." And she had told me her name and reminded me. And I had the whole memory of the experience had come back to me, where it was one of my first nights on labor and delivery, and she was telling me, you know, this is our first baby, and we'd gone through so many, a hard time to get here, and this is just a wonderful experience. And she was so happy that I was there to share it with her. And she, I remember during the delivery, she had started crying, and her husband was crying, and then I started crying, and we were all crying, and they were all excited because I was crying, and it was just a wonderful memory, their whole birth experience.
A nurse for about 27 years, going on 28. And I think the most memorable moment I remember is taking care of another nurse in the wound care department. She was an ICU nurse, and she had had a necrotizing fasciitis, which means it was just spreading in her abdomen. And they went ahead and did surgery, and she was pretty much opened up from sternum to sternum type of thing, and in agonizing pain. And we had to start putting on a wound vac, which when you're open that much, it is very painful. And so we started putting lidocaine in the wound to kind of numb it before we could get her to accept the vac. And it worked beautifully. It worked. She was happy. For the first few weeks, we had to give her a little morphine before we took off the vac. But after that, if you could see the pictures, she basically went from wide open to completely closed in less than 12 months, or 12 weeks, excuse me, 12 weeks. And her aunt or uncle, somebody was an infectious disease physician, and they asked for copies of all her records, and they were going to do a whole series on what is necrotizing fasciitis for a medical school in the Midwest. So that made me feel kind of good that we could heal her that quick. We took care of her pain, which was, you know, as a nurse, you know you're going to have pain, but she was scared to death. And so that really, really made me feel good that we healed one of our own. Yeah.
think one of my most compassionate moments that I've had since I've been here is we had a mother who went through a near-death experience here in our unit. They worked on her all day long and saved her life. And when she came over to the mother-baby unit, she was quite weak for several days. But in all of this, the baby had to be transferred out because it was premature. So she hasn't seen or touched or had anything to do with her baby. So quite a few people were coming to visit her and check on her. And our director, our CEO, came up with some people from administration, and they asked if there was anything that they could do for her. But this is like the third day, so she was pretty quiet and very emotional that day. And I asked Joanne, I said, you know what would be really nice? I said, they don't own a camera. I don't know if it's possible, but is there a way for us to get videotape, or could we get a webcam? And she said, well, I'll have to work on that and see what happens. And within the hour, IT was up here with a laptop and on the phone with O'Connor Hospital, and within 20 minutes, she was able to see her baby for the first time. And it was not a dry eye in the room. We were all so excited. And I sat and explained what each and all the little tubes and wires were, because I'm a NICU nurse also. And just to see her face for the first time, to be able to watch it in real time, was just amazing. The sad part was that I could feel for her that she couldn't reach out and touch her baby, but yet very excited and happy that she could at least see her moving and you know, see the nurses touching her and caring for her, and she was able to watch it as a ready, complete tape constantly, and not have to, anytime she was afraid or worried, all she'd have to do was open her eyes and the baby was right there.